Okay, good morning and welcome everyone. This is Melissa Reif. As Kim so nicely introduced me a few times, I am the Assistant HR Manager here at Cornell Cooperative Extension, Cornell University, and I am delighted, actually ecstatic, to be able to talk to you about the skills for success in the workplace and how to use them for your success and your organization's success. We are recording today's session, and we will be posting the recording out on our staff site later. Therefore, I have a few expectations I want to run through with you all, just to make sure we're on the same page. So again, this is a presentation for Cornell Cooperative Extension Associations. In the audience is Cornell Cooperative Extension Associations. There may be other individuals listening on from the university. Please note you do have a different set of skills for success at the university, and this presentation and all the comments are related to the association population. We will be recording, as I said, so please be sure to use appropriate examples or responses, and when I say that, try not to use names or specific counties or anything that would let a user know, what you're referring to. The examples that we'll go through in this presentation also will have fictitious names, and they are not related to any real-life situation from an extension perspective. So they may seem familiar to you, but they were kind of fabricated based on experiences of the group. Also, I want to encourage you to use this as a tool for ongoing communication. And as we go through this, there will be different perspectives from audience members about the skills for success, and there could be a scale of understanding of skills for success from an individual's perspective or from an organizational perspective. These skills for success are applicable to all cooperative extension associations and are a tool to be used in that aspect for communication, and we'll go through that later. But I just want to make sure that we understand that today is not the end of the conversation about the skills for success. It's an ongoing communication process. Okay, so we're heading on slide here so that we can cut our recording at the right spot. Okay, so on the agenda for today, what are the skills for success? How may they be used? And some examples. And then we have time, hopefully, at the end of 90 minutes for some question and answers. And please understand that this, again, as I said, is an ongoing communication. So if you have questions that need to be answered later on, there are tools and resources for that as well. Okay, what are the skills for success? Well, as it says here on the screen, and I don't like reading, but they are a set of behavior-based skills essential to support the achievement of individual, team, and organizational success. So that's a lot to take in there. They are used in all sorts of different ways. They're a tool, and they were created in 2004, the first version, and implemented in 2004 for association use. But just like any tool or any process related to people and processes and impacted by changes in the overall environment of employment or demographics or just the realities that you're facing, they do need to be refreshed every once in a while. So in 2014, they were changed, and we're going to go through the new revised skills for success in this presentation. They established a common language. So therefore, when you're talking to your colleagues, or even your direct reports, or your supervisor, you can have the same tool as they have. They apply to everyone. And then it's system-wide. So again, not only do they apply to your association-specific or your team-specific, they apply to all the county extension cooperative extension associations, and they impact the success of that entire system. Okay, so I'm going to run through these quickly. There's 10 of them, and point out some things, maybe ask some questions, but really the nitty-gritty that we'll get to is in the examples. But this is a new one that was added, health and safety, a new skill. And not that we didn't have health and safety before, we did, but it's important for our organization to highlight the necessary skill related to health and safety for all employees in cooperative extension. The health and safety culture, the health and safety atmosphere in one association will impact the larger association system-wide, because we are all on the same health and safety plan, if you will, from a workers' comp perspective. So we want to make sure not only that our staff members are safe in the workplace and that we can ensure that we all come in and not worry about being in danger every day, but we also want to make sure that our volunteers, our program participants, and even the community at large, when they interact with cooperative extension, feel safe and have some assurances that they'll come out in a healthy status when they come out of the program or after their interaction with us. So it's important, and I'd like to point out the one that stands out to me, and I'm sure there are others that stand out to you, and feel free to chat if there's a word on here that really makes you think, wow, this is what health and safety is about. But I really like the proactively preventing accidents part of this. So not only am I following what I have to follow as far as rules and association policy and laws, but I'm proactively preventing accidents from occurring in the first place. So that's the word that sticks out to me. Feel free to chat if you find another word on there that sticks out to you. And I'm going to advance to the next skill. Job skills. So this, again, is another new skill for success that was added to our 10. And job skills were added basically because the environment changed. There was a lot of feedback about having individuals who may not be up to speed with their job knowledge, or they may, perform at a specific level and get by, or maybe they want some sort of reinforcement about improving their job skills, not that they have a deficiency. So this was added so that we can ensure that, your job skills, what you bring to the day-to-day at cooperative extension associations is, in progress and there. Again, I said earlier, there's a kind of a scale of proficiency level in some of these skills, and we'll get to those examples later on. But there might be one word or two on this that sticks out to you, and I think what I'm going to do is give you guys a moment to read the slide and let me know if there is any questions or if there's any word that really sticks out to you as capturing this whole concept. Another sound check would be good too. If you can still hear me, that would be okay to say too. Okay. Not seeing any yet. Oh, okay, great.
All right.
Thank you, Jim.
There we go.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm assuming if there were any questions about job skills or any poignant points to make about job skills, that they would have been texted in the chat. So I'm just going to move forward to the next skill, inclusiveness. So again, this one is an essential skill in cooperative extension associations because we have specific objectives as an organization to be able to include and reach specific audiences and to demonstrate this capacity. So some of us, and I can say as I looked at this list, I was like, there might be some things on there that I'm a little challenged with, specifically supporting work-life integration and balance in the workplace. I may have challenges with that. Some of you may also have either same challenges or a different challenge on this list. It's important for us as individuals as we're in the workplace for associations to understand that, yeah, okay, this is great. These are where we're supposed to be, but we might be on some sort of variation of that and may be able to seek out some professional development or some support in some fashion to improve our skills. So just because these skills are up there does not mean that everyone in the association necessarily holds the same proficiency of these skills as the person next to them. Okay. And if you have the same challenge with work-life integration in the workplace that I do, I'd love to hear it in the chat.
So, Melissa, I'm looking, this is Kim, looking at that bullet, the actively supports work-life integration, and part of that is supporting others and their day-to-day work life, but also knowing that people do bring part of what's happening in their personal life to the workplace. So supporting that as a supervisor or a colleague, and not being judgmental, or is that part of what that bullet means? Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yep.
That's how I see that.
Good point, Kim. That's exactly it. So it's being inclusive of those needs, really, that others have is why it's in the inclusive category. Yep. Thank you, Kim.
I think you're pretty good at that, Melissa, from what I see.
Oh, I know. Adaptability. This one is how quick and nimble we can be to changes that face us, and how we can modify our way of doing things to be responsive to those overall objectives, whether they are individual, team, or organizational objectives. And again, this is one that comes up quite a bit in the employee relations situations that I get to experience. And so I think that having this adaptability is, again, on a scale. You know, some people are very adaptable to changes, but change is hard to others. So understanding that and recognizing that this is a skill, and the level of proficiency of that skill could be different within the organization and within individuals. Any questions on adaptability before I move on? You could chat them in the chat box. Okay. Self-development. So this one has been there, and is still there. It's worded differently as far as the skills for success. Some of the changes have been made, but really what this is again, looking out, looking ahead, looking in at what's coming at you and what your skill set are as an individual, or what your team has as skill sets, and looking at that development so that we can achieve these goals, objectives, strategies, if you will, together in an inclusive fashion, and also a productive fashion, with individuals having the right performance levels to be able to achieve those. Again, I think what sticks out to me on this, and some of you know I've said this before, feedback is right there, and is aware and seeks and acts upon performance feedback. That could be a little challenging for some. I like to ask for feedback, and I like to have feedback. Others, you know, are not so open to that idea sometimes. So it's knowing that where you are on that spectrum, and where others on your team might be on that spectrum, and being cognizant of that. Communication, again, essential. If we're going to be working with other people, we need to have some pretty good communication skills, not just in writing, of course, but also in our verbal communication. And quite often, when an employee relations situation comes up, or a challenging time in a team comes up, it's related to communication. It might be based in one of the other skills as well, but communication seems to surface quite a bit as a challenge. And even though you think you might be excellent with communication, there's always opportunity to improve upon that, because you're facing other individuals who have different communication styles, or the environment is changing, and keeping up with that adaptation to those communication styles is important too. And again, feedback is in this. I think that's a critical piece to communication, because in my mind, having an understanding of how I'm not communicating correctly to you, Kim, would be great for you to share with me, right?
Right.
So, you know, it's a two-way street. If Kim feels my communication is off, I need that feedback. And if I feel Kim's communication is off, she needs that feedback as well, so we can advance together.
Are you trying to tell me something, Melissa?
No. It's just because you're the closest proximity to me, Kim. Teamwork, again. Kim and I are a perfect example of this. We've been working together on this project for, presenting this for the last couple of weeks, and, I do think we tried to show respect and compassion and empathy for each other. But again, teamwork is an essential skill. So if you're working in, a glass dome with no one else around you, and no communication in, no communication out, you could be fine without this skill. But if you are working with others, teamwork is an essential skill. So I like this one. I'm sure there's questions at this point or gems that you guys want to share, so I'm going to stop right here, and maybe what you could do is pick out a word on this screen that exemplifies, or one that you think you might need to, work better at as far as teamwork goes.
If people prefer to be on the phone, I can unmute. So if you put your name in the chat and ask me to unmute you, I can do that.
Let's see how well their teamwork is. Can you still hear us? Awesome. Thanks, Jim. Great. Okay. All right. From one of the participants, I think a positive attitude towards others on the team and their opinions and insights is extremely important. It wasn't because the word was spelled incorrectly that I paused. It's because my eyes hurt from this far away. And so I agree. I think that's a great point. Positive attitude does go a long way, and openness.
I think that ties back, this is Kim, ties back to the positive attitude and giving people the benefit of the doubt. If they write an email and it sounds a little short or curt, and you start to say, oh, what's wrong, are they mad at me, or I think we have to be careful with that type of communication in our teamwork, and also say, oh, Melissa would never write mean something wrong, even though I'm reading it this way, but I should go to her and just make clear that we're working together okay, right?
Right.
So, good example.
Good point. Thank you. And we got another one.
Debbie Seguin.
Oh, respect, definitely a key word, yes. Yes, lack of respect is hard. Lack of respect and lack of trust maybe sometimes too, are where I see a lot of teamwork break down. Natalie says, understands how behaviors impact others. That's right. So, I could feel that my behavior is just fine in this team, but if it's negatively impacting my teammates, it's not going to go well for the team and the organization, and maybe for myself. Good. All right, great. Great participation. Okay, service-minded. This one's been on there before. That is one of our skills, and it's there again. The words may be a little different. The one that I find is a little bit challenging on this list is negotiates well in finding and orchestrating win-win solutions, right? That one can be, at least from my perspective, having that skill to be a good negotiator, good influencer, get those win-win situations is kind of hard sometimes. And it does make a difference if your other skills are honed or not, and whether or not the individual you're working with has the same skill set or the same spectrum of those skills can also impact that. Anything else on this list about service-minded that might be challenging in your organizations? Yeah, timely and responsive does show the most respect for the team. That's right.
And that's, this is Kim, Leah, that's something that when we're doing so much work across the state or virtually or through webinars or through meetings online through WebEx, that can be a tough thing if you don't know your teammates well. Sometimes people are a little less accountable or a little less timely, but if I know Melissa's going to walk down the hall and say, did you see my email, I'm going to really respond quickly. So I think that relationship building really helps people to be service-minded to each other.
Right. Now, and there are occasions where, and Kim's not joking, I will get up out of my chair like 3 seconds after I sent her something and ask her if she's seen it yet. There are occasions when, you know, your expectation might be off from their workload too, a little bit. So I'm expecting Kim to give me that feedback and say, hey, I can't really get to you right now, so that I know where I am in that process and can give her some respect back the other way, because I'm not her only customer. And sometimes I have to have that message. But yeah, I think it's okay. Jim's saying changing processes to improve outcomes. Right. That could be kind of hard in an organization that's, you know, change adverse sometimes, or you yourself find change hard, you know, to enact, and maybe the change in the process requires other people in the process, and quite often it does, require more than just you to change a process. So it does make it challenging. Good point, Jim. Okay, excellent. We're going to move on. Stewardship. So this one is an interesting one. Not only is stewardship about, you know, the environment and keeping the, you know, being cognizant of your impact on the environment, but environment doesn't just mean natural resources. It means people, too. So if you're not stewardess with your use of resources, people, let's say you're having a team interaction and you overutilize Kim, you know, I'm not being very steward-like of Kim and her time and her resources, or my time even, and others on the team. So it does not just have to be about, when we say environment, we think the outdoors and lovely natural resources and things. It's about all of the resources that are at our hand, from the telephone to the fax machine to the colleagues we have. You know, it's even the email and our capacity to understand email. It's definitely being cognizant and being accountable for how well you're utilizing those resources in the most efficient manner. And again, I think there are some things here that are kind of difficult or interesting in our own organizations. You know, this high standards of personal conduct and its consequences, you know, that's very clear sometimes in actions, but this might spill over or maybe misinterpreted or even extend beyond what an individual might think that is. For example, if I were on one of those social media things, Facebook or whatever, and I posted something about my lack of support here in my job, and it got to somebody who's a candidate for a position here, and it tainted their opinion of working for Cooperative Extension. That is not being stewardess with my own outside personal conduct. Again, that's not any reflection of any example in the association, but you know, it does come up in business, and it does come up here at the university every once in a while too. We talk about those things. So any other difficulties from the stewardship list that you guys might see in association? Okay, I'm not seeing any just yet. I'm going to move on. Innovation. So if you recall the prior Skills for Success, the last one was motivation. They have changed it to innovation, which makes really good sense, and it accommodates the changing environment that we are in. So it's advancement of, we're going to say products, but our products is delivering educational services. So processes, services, technologies, ideas. So, you know, we're looking for new ways of doing things. This is also related to adaptability. So those who have, you know, maybe some work with adaptability might also have some challenges with innovation as well. It's not a direct correlation, but it seems to come up quite a bit in employee relations issues, that those who are challenged with, you know, foresight and, you know, looking ahead and changing ideas also have problems or challenges with adaptability as well. So again, I'd like to hear from you guys. Do you feel that innovation, this skill, is something that fits the extension system in your association? Or do you feel that it is something that is, you know, wrought with challenges for us? Feel free to chat away. Too many challenges. Very funny, Jim. You know, I see some challenges out there. Anybody think of you know, innovation and grant environment? I mean, if you've hired somebody who's really innovative and you've hired them into this grant that has specific deliverables, that might be a challenge, right? Let's see what else we're seeing.
I just want to comment to Jim there that it's opportunities, Jim, too many opportunities, right?
Yeah, okay, so there's a comment that this seems more appropriate for higher level positions, and I agree. I think the scale of innovation or the scale of any of these skills really related to your position is going to be different. So, you know, but it's still a skill that we would expect a certain level there in your position to have, no matter what your position is. But I agree with that comment that it does seem like it's, you know, at a higher level, like a resource educator above, it seems like a very critical skill. As well, varying amounts of commitment, right, depending on the individual, that's great. Definitely fits. Challenges that we have employees that like to keep things the same and don't enjoy innovation. Right, right. And, you know, that's a perfect comment because we, you know, we do like to have some sort of dependability in our lives.
Right.
And unless you're, you know, a little, you know, highly or maybe overly energized type individual, you like to have things exciting all the time, and there's a mixture, right? There's
sure.
I'd like to have it dependable, and I'd like to be interested every day with something new and different. So it depends on the individual. That's a good point. Yep, good. And, oh, good.
Jim's making a point there about the text.
Yeah, yeah. Very good. Okay, good interaction. We're going to move on from here. So those are our skills, the 10. We went through them kind of quickly, but I think there was good discussion there. If you guys have any questions before I move on, please feel free to chat them. So I'm going to talk about how the skills for success can be used in the Cooperative Extension Association environment. So really, these skills are for establishing expectations, refreshing those expectations, coaching on those expectations, because they are expectations of us all. Now, our position descriptions are also our expectations, and we'll talk about position descriptions a little bit more later, but really we use these when people get hired, when we're training them to a new position, maybe they've had a promotion, giving them what we call orientation to whatever role they're in the position descriptions, and we'll talk more about that, in the performance dialogue process, which is an annual process, and then any time there's performance management feedback, and that's both positive and you know, constructive feedback. So there's nothing saying that you can't go up to somebody and say, hey, Kim, I really liked your adaptability today in that meeting. You seemed really, you know, easy with the changes. It's awesome, right? I can give Kim some positive feedback, and then she may turn around and say, I do not like your communication style, Melissa, right? So it's very important to notice the positive attributes that people have and to encourage the positive involvement in these skills that individuals have. It's not always about the negative, right? Although we will have some examples that will probably kind of harp on the challenges or opportunities, as Kim calls it, with these skills for success, but they could be positive examples. Okay, so your position expectations come from your position description, from your orientation, from any interaction you have with your team / your supervisor about what your role is. So we have these template position descriptions out there on the staff site, and they have been updated. I think almost all of them now. If you discover one that's not, let us know. But we have updated them to include the new revised skills for success. So your position descriptions, and you yourself as individuals, you may or may not have seen a revised copy of your position descriptions for these skills for success, just because they were recently issued, but it should be coming the next time your position description is reviewed. You should see something different, hopefully. And you know, again, the position descriptions are setting expectations. That position description document is the tasks that you're going to do in your responsibilities and roles, and as well as that, in there are your expectations, and the skills for success are an expectation. So anytime you're hired, you have a change in job, anytime you have your performance dialogue process, or anytime you need clarity in your expectations, that position description document should be your, you know, your source, your guide, your tool to have that conversation with your team or your supervisor as needed. And if you are a supervisor, just like, you know, I am in some aspects, you would take out that position description and the skills for success and review them before you have that conversation with your direct report about whether or not we're meeting expectations. It's a good tool to just pull it out and refresh your memory about what exactly was put in there. And maybe there's something that needs to be clarified even further, and there needs to be a revision. Any questions on position descriptions and skills for success and clarifying expectations? We're going to move on to performance management. So performance management is the term of any time that you want to give feedback, positive feedback or constructive feedback to you know, a direct report or a colleague, or even you want to look critically at yourself and say, okay, how am I doing with this skill? How am I doing with making sure that I integrate that work-life balance and I'm respectful of that if I've identified that as a challenge? So again, from a supervisory perspective, you'll be doing this when, you know, you have regular training going on or you have a team discussion. They might be used in part of that process. So if there's a team you're on and you know, there's a communication issue, it might be good to set the expectation again with those on the team about what communication and how communication will be best served for the group that's working on that task. Annual performance dialogues, they come up again for the skills for success there. And I have had myself objectives tied to the skills for success in my annual review, which, you know, is important to do. Even though I might feel I'm good with certain aspects, I may have challenges with other aspects. Any performance management discussion or discipline should talk about the rule or the policy that's being broken, if there is one, or being, you know, I would say pushed up against, not necessarily broken. And then, of course, the skills for success behind that. So, you know, it might not be necessarily against the policy for one to do this, but it doesn't quite fit the teamwork aspect of the skills for success. And both supervisors and employees can use them. I've said this already, but I feel like this is important. And what else should go in here is teams. Teams should use these. If you're in a team and you think there's a challenge going on and maybe none of you are supervising, any of the other, but you're just on a cross-functional work team or a hodgepodge work team, which is sometimes what we're on here.
What you call us?
Yes, hodgepodge. We get things done, right? And we may need to refresh some of those skills while we're getting things done and remind each other about those skills. Or we may need to point out how well Kimberly is doing with one of those skills.
There you go. I'm kind of curious about that, if people have actually used this in team discussions. I haven't, but it's a neat idea. So if there's anybody on the line who's had that example, how it worked, what they discussed.
Or if you haven't, you could just say no, never. So that we can know that you hear us.
They can hear us.
Okay.
They can hear us.
It's a challenge of having everyone muted. It's hard to,
yes,
you know.
getting the feedback. So.
Great. Okay. At least there was one response.
Interesting idea, though. Yep.
Yeah. And if anybody does in the future and they think it worked well, it would be great to hear from our perspective up here how well that went. Or if you had challenges too and you wanted to get some. Okay. I have a question. Leah, no, there are not new performance review dialogue forms for the new Skills for Success, and there are no template performance review forms out on the staff skills or staff site presently, and so I would encourage you to look at whatever performance dialogue forms are being used, and we could talk about that more in the HR group. It does not work well because there are times when the issue.
It does work well.
Oh, it does work. Okay, good.
I think Eileen might have gotten, cut out. So it does work well because of times when the issue isn't directly related to a policy.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. So, and that's quite often. Sometimes when we get calls from supervisors or HR staff about a challenging situation going on in a particular unit, quite often it's not about a blatant policy violation. It's more often about these, what used to be called soft skills, and they're moving more and more towards more objective, harder skills, but and quite often it's not about, a policy violation or something you can completely point out to them in text. It's more of a conversation about these skills for success. So that's a good point. All right. So we got some scenarios.
The fun part.
The fun part. And these are fresh scenarios. I did not recycle ones from the last presentation of this 2 years ago. So I'm going to give you a moment to read it. I'm going to, read it with you. There's a lot of words on the screen, but it's important to know. While walking down the hall late to a meeting, of course, and talking with a colleague on your cell, you tripped over a power cord stretched across the hall and seriously injured your knee and wrist when you fell. Julie, an administrative assistant, heard it happen and was the first to arrive to your aid. You hear her say, "Oh no, wow, I nearly tripped over that cord Rick left there myself earlier this morning." Rick is the facilities manager. So, thoughts, comments, anybody know what skills and who might need some feedback on these specific skills in this situation? Oh, okay, so it looks like there's a couple of questions about the matrix for examples of meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, and failure to meet expectations. I'm going to refer you back to your HR lead. I think that's Margie Keith. And I'm not sure if you're referring to one that was provided out on the university's website or a local, potentially even regional resource there. So I'd have you check with your HR lead on that, Margie.
We don't have a statewide matrix then for the association Skills for Success, Melissa.
And not for the new ones, and I don't think we actually have a statewide one for the prior ones. They could have been a resource that was linked from, the university site, or something developed regionally or locally. So in scenario one, I'm not seeing any responses yet about scenario one. What skills are in play here, and who may need a refresher on those skills, or a conversation or feedback on those skills? I wish I had prizes.
Oh, I bet we could find prizes.
A virtual candy bar? Anybody can text.
Do we want to pull that up on the list of skills?
Oh, here we go. Health and safety and communication, very good. Health and safety, good.
For both Rick and Julie.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
Right. Anyone else? Okay, Rick needs health and safety. Okay, here we go, good. Stop being late. That can't always be avoided, but that is a good point. And how fast were you going down that hallway? You know, as a reflection, and what kind of shoes did you have on? If it's me, you know, I can't be trusted in specific shoes. Yeah, it needs to be addressed immediately. Great. Rick needs to be safer. Okay. Job skills, and the facility manager is responsible for clutter and maintenance. So I agree with that. Rick definitely has some accountability here. And Julie, it sounds like Julie saw it there earlier and did nothing about it, or maybe she did and it wasn't successful. And you yourself might have, some, things that you could develop upon, making sure your time management is a little bit better, or, you're not distracted while you're walking down the hall. Although I got to say, I'm guilty of this. This would be one that I'd have a challenge with. So it's important to understand that safety is everyone's responsibility. Safety is not just the responsibility of the facilities manager, although the facilities manager had, a large part with this, right? But Julie also had accountability to safety, and you yourself had an accountability to safety in this situation. Now, the person who got hurt, it's not nice to say it's your fault. You got hurt, right? But what led to that, and having a good conversation about, being cognizant of the environment around you might also be appropriate. But really here, I think that the message to drive home is that Julie saw this and it didn't get corrected, and Rick did this, and left it there. And so there needs to be some conversation about how safety is an important aspect of association life.
So the last comment there, Melissa, from Eileen is service-minded Julie. So that could actually, in my mind, go both ways. I'm not sure which way Eileen means it, but Julie ran out to help the person.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Part of that's a little bit, she was there and heard something happen and came to this person's aid.
Yeah.
Where it's also possible that she didn't follow up when she saw the cord. So.
Right.
I see two ways there.
Right. And Julie might think she was being really service-minded by being the first person there to help you, right? So recognizing that when you're having a conversation with her.
But then saying something about Rick, isn't the most respectful.
Right.
Yep. Okay. Second, I see that too. Thanks, Eileen. Good.
All right. Are we ready to move on to the next scenario? It's got more words on it, and I apologize. They all do. Okay. Your association just hired Laura 2 months ago after an extended issue leader search, and we know how exhausting that can be. Laura brings impressive technical expertise to the program area. In the last few months, she has approached her new position with enthusiasm and has accomplished more than expected. This is great because the search took so long and the program was already behind. She has put in some long hours in the office and at home, but when you ask her about how she's doing, she gives you no indication of exhaustion. Tom, Laura's program assistant, is now coming to you because he is concerned about how she barks orders at him and others. He witnessed her reject an idea from Aiden that she later used as her own idea, And to top it off, she has denied Tom's last 3 requests for a vacation day, stating that there's too much work to be done to have him out. Wow. I want to report to Laura. Oh boy, I love it. So,
oh boy.
what skills are in play here, and who may need to have a conversation about those skills? And this would not happen in an association. This is a drastic example. Teamwork and communication, great. Who would need teamwork and communication? And any other skills that you guys want to suggest? Could be many levels, right? Okay. Teamwork and communication for Laura.
Mm-hmm.
Any other skills that you guys can think of that might come into play here?
Natalie's suggesting self-development for Laura.
Teamwork, communication, especially self-development, right? Okay. How inclusive is Laura being of Tom and Aiden and others? Inclusiveness, right? Work-life integration, good job.
James was wondering if Laura is trying to address Tom's own skills. So there's the flip side, having the benefit of the doubt. That's good. Respect
right.
for Laura. That's
right, because we're only getting Tom's perspective here. It's good to know.
And inclusiveness. Yeah.
Tired and over the top, right? She might be, might not be doing very good with stewardship, right, of her own resources and the resources of her team. She's not, maybe she's potentially, I like all of the skills, very good. Potentially, this is how she's worked at other places, and she's not adapting very well to the pace of extension, right? Or maybe, conversely, her team's not adapting very well to her pace,
that's a good point.
Right? Great. Good. Service-minded adaptability, awesome. And, you know, I think we've already talked about communication, but, you know, and some of you are supervisors and executive directors on this call, you know, we always have to make sure we fact check and get, you know, the other side, because there's always more to the situation than what we are faced with. But, you know, has Tom given her this communication? Has he been very feedback-oriented with, you know, development for Laura? Good. Great conversation.
Yeah, nice participation.
Okay. Promise there's only 2 more. This one. You are expected to be able to comply with the finance policies, but you don't fully understand them. You've been admonished in front of your supervisor by Charlotte, the finance manager, for getting the finance process incorrect. And I apologize to any finance managers on this call. Every time you request to meet with Charlotte in an attempt to understand them better, she takes several days to respond, then reschedules several times, or cancels. And when the 2 of you finally meet, you leave feeling unheard and more confused than when you started. Before you get your question fully out, Charlotte talks over you and gives the answers that she provides that are not what you are asking for. Quite often, her response includes insults like, "You can read, can't you? It's clearly spelled out in the policy." Or, "I thought you got your master's degree from Cornell." You have seen her be very patient and helpful with others who have worked with her longer. You're beginning to wonder if you'll ever get the information you need. Ooh, what's skills are at play here? And who might need those skills? Okay. Inclusiveness, right? Communication, Charlotte, good. Who needs the inclusiveness? Do I need to be more inclusive? Or is Charlotte the one who might need to be more inclusive? Charlotte, okay, good. Well, I might need to be more inclusive too. It's not spelled out here.
Have a little respect for the finance manager.
That's right. I mean, what is my problem? I can't seem to get it.
Just scenarios.
All right. Communication, teamwork, job skills. Right. So yeah, it's important to note that it's a job skill of the finance manager to be able to, you know, communicate to those in her area and in her purview, so that they can understand. Right. Right. Of course, as I said earlier, this is just one side of the story. It's important to note that there is another side. Service-minded, yes, yes. What if I request a meeting of Charlotte every other day, and I'm in her office every other day asking her the same question over and over again?
Still don't understand it.
What skill might I need? Am I being very resourceful with the resources at hand? If I'm bombarding her with, maybe I'm not just going to, you know, see her at her office, maybe I'm sending her an email message every 30 minutes too, right? I might not be very stewardess or have a lot of stewardship towards that resource.
Melissa, I think this scenario is a really great example of why that skills for success is attached to the position description. When you think about some of these very technical, or what I see as more technical positions, that finance expertise, if you're interviewing and looking for that somebody who's really good with the books, you really have to be aware of that need for teamwork and communication and inclusiveness. And they're all good examples, but this one really, that jumped out to me.
Good.
We're looking at this.
Okay, let's see. You need to be in Charlotte's office every other day. Maybe she needs to seek and understand better what your real need is. Yes, right. So it's two-sided, right? Good. Good. Okay, are we ready to move on to 4? And I happen to like all of these examples.
Oh, absolutely.
But some of them are more interesting than others. Okay, so there's been a major change in a program direction for one of your association's long-standing programs. Henry, the issue leader for this program, has been dedicated to the program for over 15 years. He does not agree with the changes, but it is clear that the changes need to happen and that it is his responsibility to implement them. Every time you ask him about his program, he either changes the subject, says he's got it under control, or asks if he can schedule a meeting later and never does. You just got a call from a volunteer who is upset because she heard changes were to be made. She does not know what the changes are, and when she asks, everyone else has been told by Henry that the changes do not apply to his program. Ooh. skills are at play here? And who needs maybe feedback on those skills? Adaptability on Henry's part. Good.
Quick one.
Good. Change can be hard for some people, especially if they're not used to, if they're used to a specific way for 15 plus years,
That's right? That's right.
Stewardship. Right.
That's a good example of stewardship, really.
Innovation, very good. Adaptability, communication, and inclusiveness, right? So, right, there's people who don't even know in the program that are not being included in this process. Self-development, right? That's correct. Communication, good. Job skills, right. What if Henry doesn't know how to make those changes? Not that, you know, he might not agree with them necessarily, but just because he really doesn't know how to do it, he's dragging his feet or, you know, is insisting he doesn't really want to do it because he's not sure what to do. I'm assuming that the first person here, the you just got a call, is a supervisor, right? Right. Okay. Good. Jim saying exactly where I was going. As I, the supervisor, the you in this example, do I need some sort of coaching? I mean, or feedback on how I'm doing? Because I'm just accepting that he avoids me, reschedules meetings or doesn't schedule meetings, changes the subject, right? I'm just going to let that go.
Sure.
And truth be told, I probably have 2 other issue leaders or a bunch of other direct reports, and I'm expecting him to do this, right?
Sure.
So from a supervisor's perspective, it's really attractive and easy to kind of go, well, I've given that to Kim to do.
Let her do her job.
I'm going to let her do her job. She'll come to me if she needs help, right? But I think he's waving a red flag here.
Sure.
Right. So, you know, my supervisor, if there is one in this association, might not have such a good, you know, feeling about how I'm helping guide this Henry through his process. Okay, looks like our comments have stopped. So that is the last example I have for you. I hope you've enjoyed those scenarios. Now we'll open it up to any questions that or answers you want to provide me. Any questions that you have about using the skills for success and using them to a capacity that could help excel the organization, a team, or an individual to success. And if you would prefer to be unmuted, just let us know by chatting your name and unmute in the text in the chat box. Oh, here we go. Okay, the first question is, could we find an innovative way to have this good training be available to all staff, new staff? So thank you, Jim, for thinking it's good training. We'll either use this recording or we'll re-record it in a more clean, concise fashion and post it to the staff site. And it's likely to be linked either to or from the HR page as well, so that you guys can find that in the HR group.
We've also talked about, Jim, this is Kim, we've talked about making this recording, as Melissa said, going through and doing it without an actual group to shorten it, but we could also offer that in segments. So if you think that'd be useful, let us know, even if it's a few minutes on each skill.
And then also for those of you who have not come, I'd like to put a plug in for Supervisory Development Certificate Program.
That's right.
Which talks, if you're a supervisor or you're going to be a supervisor in an association, the Skills for Success document comes up quite a bit in that training. Myself and Sarah Dayton usually facilitate that training. It is a 3.5-day program here in Ithaca. I think we're going to do it in May this year. So we'll be publishing that soon for sign up, but it's a valuable, it's long and it's intensive, I agree, because I think it's long, but it's a very good training for supervisors on how to handle these Skill for Success feedback moments.
Shorter.
Or slides for the presentation, yeah. Yeah. That's a great idea. Good. We're getting some good feedback. So, any other questions, comments? We can definitely get this out there as a recording in whatever fashion makes the best sense for the associations. But if you have no further questions or comments, I guess we can adjourn early. That was quick.
Great.
Must be that my communication style is either too fast
Not at all.
or understandable. You know, I will take that feedback, whomever has it. Great,
again,
thank you.
This launches the idea, that gets it out there. It's just the beginning, and we'll be looking for posting some more resources for everyone and continue the conversation. Right. Thanks so much, Melissa. Appreciate you being part of things.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.